Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. It's another happy Monday. Three amigos reassembled, I'm glad to say. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10, as you can see from the Twitter handle, but you know that. And I'm joined today by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW and Aidan Macdonald at Aidan C. Macdonald. Happy Monday, gentlemen. How are we?
All good, Tony. Are you?
Yes.
Chuffy?
Oh, yes, we're going to twist a few melons today, I think, by the sounds and looks of it. Aidan, yourself, good weekend?
Yeah, no, I'm good, Tony. Very happy to be here after the weekend result.
I always tell you it's result dependent, Aidan. That big cheesy grin says it all. Yes, good morning, everybody. Hope you're well. Hope you had a wonderful Easter weekend. Still continuing Easter Monday. We'll talk everything Celtic in a second, but I'll just direct you to the ticker tape running along the bottom, and you can support top quality football journalism covering the club you love by subscribing to the Celtic Way. Costs you the grand sum of £2 for 2 months. For a click of a button, guys, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to SENECA. And as you all know by now, the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video.
On that note, Tony, before we get started,
yes,
David Gillespie here's got extra reason to thank SENECA because his name came out the hat for that signed top.
Oh, magnificent, David. Well done.
Yep, so we're going to collect that from our sponsors later this week, I think. But aye, well done, David. Hope you enjoy it.
Congratulations, David. Cheers for your subscription and also well done on winning a top fabulous prize. Hope you enjoy that. Excellent stuff. Now, gentlemen, game of association football happened on Saturday. You might have been aware of it, might not, but yeah, hard to escape it. Celtic kind of looking pretty at the top of the table, are they not? 12, as I said to you off air, Aidan, getting a bit of vertigo at the top there. 12 points ahead. Title race still ongoing, but Aidan took a wonderful step forward and wrapping green and white ribbons round the trophy again.
Yep.
Were you there as a spectator, Aidan? Did you enjoy that?
I was indeed, yeah. It was an enjoyable day, Tony. A vital and important 3 points for Celtic, it's fair to say. And I think coming into the season, like a few results we've mentioned on the pod recently, that could be an absolutely vital one when it hopefully comes to Celtic lifting that league trophy at the end of the month.
The atmosphere,
the atmosphere was good, yeah. It was pretty good. I know there was a whole thing about whether or not any away fans sort of take away from it, but obviously the 3-0 victory last season, there was no fans in the midweek game, so the atmosphere was phenomenal that night. So I was thinking that it would probably be similar, and it was not. It was pretty good in my opinion.
Sean,
Tony,
your thoughts on the result? We've spoken off air, and you know we've had a wee giggle and all that kind of stuff, but to serious business and actually dissecting the game. But yeah, Celtic won. I think that's the big takeaway from it, really, isn't it?
Of course it is, aye. And I think we'll come to the performances, individuals, team performances in a minute. But the overriding thing is, yes, they won. 12 points clear. If you thought there was a title race going into that game, you probably don't think there is now. You know where I stood on that with the newsletter that I did last month, or even February, whatever it was now. No, it was last month. That the title race wasn't with Rangers anyway. The title race is against history. And I think that part is still on. That race is still on.
Yes.
They can still do that. They can beat the Invincibles record, but they can also potentially get that world record still. So I think ultimately they won. That's all you wanted. The performance will come to, and I'm going to throw this graphic up. You'll recognise it because I've updated that a couple of times. But this is the end of that 6 weeks that I wrote about in the middle of February. And look at all them green ticks, Tony. Look at them all.
That is, I said to you last week, that's a magnificent 7 there, Aidan. Tick, 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 tick.
You can't ask for more, can you? You
cannot ask for more.
Very literally cannot ask for more than that.
A magnificent 7 out of 7, Aidan. That's wonderful to see that, isn't it?
Yeah, no, the team have been so consistent this season, and as Sean did mention in his newsletter, when he did it, this was going to be a really, really important period of games for the sort of state of the whole season, and Celtic have been phenomenal during that time. We'll probably come on to talk about the performance, like as we mentioned, but yeah, no, it was a really important victory at the weekend, and job done really for me in the end.
Yes, now we'll take the performance, Sean.
Yep.
Wasn't the greatest performance by Celtic, but still did enough. And let's debunk some myths here as we're going along in the process. Celtic won the game, Sean. They were the better team. You did the stats bomb report, and quelle surprise, it showed that Celtic were the better team. But hey, who am I going to believe? My own eyes or other people telling me the things?
Well, aye, to be fair, it was what the stats were showing to me and to anybody else that cares to read them was just that Ange Postecoglou's assessment after it was spot on. Yeah. He rarely isn't spot on post match. He computes it very quickly and he knows what he's seen. And usually the stats back that up. I've got the race chart here. I'll just need to upload it. But what I want to show you is it's a lesser spotted thing, which is a Celtic race chart in which the other team has the higher XG at the end of it, right? But even that ties in with what Ange Postecoglou was saying, because he was saying not that they didn't threaten, just that they threatened from set pieces primarily. And when you see that the blue line's above the yellow line Celtic, obviously, what I would say from that is that I'll take that off it so you can see it. Both of them are under 1 XG, Tony. What does that tell you? That both of them overperformed in front of goal by scoring the amount of goals that they did. It tells you that what I was saying to you after the game, and what I says to most people was, it was an entertaining game, but it wasn't a quality game. Neither team was particularly good, I didn't think.
Yep.
That reflects that, because they weren't expected, through the chances that each created, they weren't expected. It should have been a 0-0 or a 1-1, really, is what it should have been, judging by that. But what I do want to point out, Ange Postecoglou saying that they were mostly threatening from set pieces. It's true, because Celtic's total XG might not be much, but it was still the entirety of it came from open play. They created the chances that they got. They also scored all three of their chances, by the way. Rangers, by contrast, 60% of their total XG was from set pieces. So what's that tell you? Ange Postecoglou was right. They were threatening from set pieces more than anything else. They also missed 3 of their top 4 chances. So even when they did create chances, they didn't take them. I know they scored twice, but both were from set pieces. So I think Celtic, off it, I don't think anybody's going to claim that Celtic were brilliant. Derek Crawford, for instance, comes in saying great result, but Celtic were not at their best. Then he says Alistair Johnston was superb. Michael Ross comes in saying strange game, because Celtic didn't play up to their normal standards from the last 3 meetings. Got to be right up for the semi-final if so they'll blow them away. Jason Lee even comes in and says credit to Rangers for a good fight. I don't know if he's agree with that or not. Chill Paul sums it up by saying played rotten and still won. I would probably say that. That's what I would say. Yeah. I know they scored 3 times, and even I know two came from Rangers' mistakes, and we'll come to those goals in a minute, because I think we've agreed we're going to go blow by blow. So we'll take it as it comes. But I suppose from what I just showed you there, Tony, will go to you first. Does that match what you see, and does it match what Ange Postecoglou said after it? Is that what you saw as well?
Very much so. And I'll go, Robert Burns, a win's a win for all that and all that. So I think at this stage of the season, that's what you would have taken. Performance-wise, not the greatest, but they still managed to keep their rivals at arm's length. This is their rivals who supposedly dominated that game. If you listen to various takes on it, which I think is a bit wild, if you ask me, dominating Rangers, all that kind of stuff. I saw the same game as a manager. I felt that we were vulnerable from set pieces. We should be able to do a lot better, and we have to do a lot better, have to cope a lot better. But Aidan, people can talk about Rangers goals coming from mistakes, but you've got to force those mistakes, and you've got to be clinical when they come along. And Celtic most certainly were, and I never felt, apart from the last 10 minutes when Tavernier made it 3-2, that was a kind of first time when you kind of got that, as Alex Ferguson would say, squeaky bum time feeling. Don't know if that translated to the stadium.
After Tavernier's sort of second to make put it to 3-2, that was when the sort of nerves kicked in at the end. Even though when you look back at it, I know Rangers had that free kick, the sort of last kick of the match pretty much. But after they got their second goal, they weren't, Joe Hart wasn't constantly having to make saves or anything, but was just sort of kind of natural nervous energy around the stadium at that point, because when Celtic had went 3-1 up, you were kind of hoping that was really the game done. So there was some nervousness around the ground in that last 10 minutes. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of Celtic overall, look, they weren't that great, and Ange sort of admitted that after the game. There was aspects he wasn't really happy with in the performance. But if you're not playing well and you're still winning, that is usually a good sign.
Kind of tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly, particularly in a game such as this. So, yeah, not a great performance overall, but an excellent result.
Tony, I suppose, I mean, you know what I'm like, I take notes during the game and stuff, and then I'll watch it back and all that kind of stuff. And for me, still, it's hard when you're watching it back, unless you watch it on mute like my uncle does, then it's hard not to get swayed by what the commentators are saying. Because obviously they're there to make it sound entertaining and all that kind of stuff. But for me, the opening 15 minutes, right, let's take that. I thought Celtic were weirdly sloppy in passing. I think we all saw that. I don't think that's a groundbreaking thing to say. I think Cameron and Carter-Vickers, Aaron Moy, even Jota all misjudging kind of attempted passes. I think Moy probably did his worst 15 minutes in a Celtic shirt, to be honest. I don't think he looked fit. I don't think he was quite ready.
He wasn't.
Might be making an excuse. I don't know. He just didn't look himself. He looked a wee bit sluggish, just in general. But in amongst all that, you had Alistair Johnston's outstanding pass to Kyogo, and I know he was offside, therefore that makes it doesn't matter. It doesn't really count. But it was a brilliant pass to see. Really good finish. I think overall in those early stages, Celtic found it more difficult to build out from the back. And I will give Rangers credit there, because they were showing they did push them. They did push Celtic in that sense. The question for me then immediately became, right, all right, but can you keep up that intensity for the whole game? And if Celtic start clicking, are you going to be able to not make errors and actually offer something going forward? Now, I'm going to come back to what I said about watching it with the comms on, because watching it with the commentary, despite what they were saying in that commentary booth on Sky, which is where I watched it back, it was the 19th minute before Rangers had any sort of sustained possession in Celtic's defensive third. And when you look at that cold hard data, instead of being swayed by the comms or the crowd or post-match narratives, really, just when you look at what that tells you, it tells you Ange Postecoglou was correct again in terms of the set pieces, but it also, I would like to add, shows you that in that first half, they had, I think, for instance, Alan McCoist, I watched it on mute. Alan McCoist said that Rangers were absolutely magnificent, or whatever way he put it. They had one shot in that whole half up until the free kick in the 45th minute. They had far better intensity, true. Give them credit for that. I think they set up off the ball with the intention of disrupting or making it more difficult for Celtic to build up from the back. And I think they did that, especially in the first half, because you've seen Carter-Vickers in particular not having the best of times at that stage. But they didn't manage it with any creativity, and I mean any creativity at all. They had one shot that came, I think, 29th minute, Malik Tillman, which is as low a statistical XG shot as you can get, 0.01. And then they had the free kick at the end of the half. They did not show anything creatively in that first half to merit the kind of almost the fawning that you were getting from the commentary booth. And I don't mean to take random shots at them, but it really didn't reflect what was happening on that park. And I just couldn't grasp why they were getting that much praise. Now,
I can grasp why they were getting that much praise, because they didn't get doing. That's why Celtic's distribution was absolutely shocking, Sean, in the first half. Distribution from tried and tested players was poor, right? But Rangers had no players that affected the game. Celtic had one player who affected the game, and the first time he affected the game, Celtic scored. Matt O'Reilly.
Yep.
Right? Ably assisted by... Yeah, all I kept hearing was Nico Raskin and Cantwell. I'll tell you something about Nico Raskin. Matt O'Reilly's the player Nico Raskin thinks he is, and Alan McCoist thinks he is. Right, okay, let's get that. Matt O'Reilly's a baller. Nico Raskin wants to watch Matt O'Reilly and say, okay, that's how it's done. That's how you affect a football match. I once said the same thing about David Turnbull and Ryan Christie, saying that David Turnbull was the player Ryan Christie thinks he is. But I'm saying it again, that Matt O'Reilly is the player Nico Raskin thinks he is, and others think he is. And he might well come onto a game. But these were guys that were brought in to affect the outcome of a football match. The Celtic players, when they got clicking and into gear, affected the outcome of a football match. Now, the narrative that's been skewed here is that Rangers were terrific. Rangers put up some kind of performance, Because bearing in mind the last time they beat the Celtic Park, they get cuffed 3-0 and 4-0. So if that's the kind of measure of fine improvement, but I mean I'm fed up with this kind of, Celtic were poor in the first half and their distribution was poor, Aidan. I'd love to have seen it if Celtic's distribution clicked into place, what might have happened, and yet they still had chances to make it forward. Bernabe, don't know what he was doing.
We'll come to that. That's a way later, Tony. We're going global.
You know what I mean? So if you want to talk about skewed narrative, and Celtic still won the game being underperforming, as you would say, and only threats coming from Rangers were from set pieces. I agree wholeheartedly with the manager. Celtic had players that were trying to affect a football match. Rangers had players who were trying to affect the Celtic players from affecting the football match, i.e. negate them, stop them from playing.
Yep, and that's what David Gillespie says here. He says, Aidan, lots of hyperbole over their tactics to stop the Celtic playing for sure, but a few teams have come to Celtic Park and set up like that, covering the pass to Callum McGregor to try and play out. And again, I'll give them credit for that, Aidan. They did do that, but what I was going to say is, again, it was not married with any creativity, but I remember saying this about St Johnstone in the League Cup semi last year, which I was there covering, and I couldn't grasp why they were getting so much praise for their performance either, because, and I said it at the time, and I'll say it, and I think it applies to Rangers here as well, playing hard and playing well are two different things, Aidan.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, even though Rangers did probably have periods in the game, or like you said, they were distracting what Celtic were trying to do some of the times, it's not like we finished that match with Joe Hart having made like 9-10 saves in a sort of Fraser Foster-esque performance from that cup final a few years ago. The chances were pretty limited, to be honest. Obviously, Joe Hart had the save from Morelos late on in the second half anyway. It was. Apart from that, all he really had to do most of the time was putting the ball out the net for those 2 goals. But overall, yeah, Celtic weren't that good. Like Tony touched on there, the distribution, particularly in the first half, was true standards. A lot of the players that you usually expect to be good with the ball coming from the back up, progressing it forward, weren't great. I think Aaron Moy just didn't look fit, as you were saying, Sean. I don't know if he maybe rushed back a wee bit with Hatate not being available. That could have been a factor, but he did struggle. Matt O'Reilly, I thought actually for overall in the game he wasn't that great, but for that first goal he was phenomenal in my opinion. The way
I thought he had a really good game personally.
I thought he was a wee bit off it as well at times, to be honest.
I couldn't disagree more with that. I thought he had a really good game. The only thing I think he did wrong was a foul, to give away the foul for that Tavernier free kick. Although Tony, we were talking, we're still not sure it was a foul. It certainly, to me, certainly wasn't a booting. Put it that way. Yeah. But I'll come to bookings. I'm going to come to bookings later on. But I suppose first, the next thing we come to, it's got to be the Morelos disallowed goal, guys. Now, I'll give my opinion after. We'll go to Aidan first, because he came on here right away and he's saying, "What did you think, guys?"
Oh, you could put Aidan on the spot.
On the floor, like you did Tony the other week.
That's no fair, is it, Aidan?
I would say.
What's your perception of it? Firstly, from when you were at the game, but also presumably you've seen it back. So, what do you reckon?
Well, at the game, to be honest, it was obviously up the other end from me, so it was quite hard to see. At first, I thought it might be an own goal from Alistair Johnson. Then, quickly when it got to half time, I was able to check it on my phone and see it back. And I think, to be honest, it was a foul, I would say, because they were jostling back and forth. I could maybe see that some Rangers fans say it was a wee bit harsh, but the sort of narrative online that it was one of the worst decisions in the history of the Scottish game was very sort of dramatic, in my opinion. They were both jostling, and I think you could see there was a push there. Look, I think it didn't really surprise me that when I seen it back that it was a foul. This sort of narrative, it seemed to be online, that people couldn't believe, and there was absolutely no way. VAR's there as well. It was checked. They seen, I think, what people up that end and people on the telly would have seen as well, that there was jostling between the two, and it looked like there was a push. So, yeah, I thought it was a foul in the end.
Tony?
Yep, right, he's got a hold of his jersey for one, and then he pushes him with 2 hands, that's why he falls. Same manoeuvre that he did in the League Cup final on Moy, got away with it. And if you're of a older generation and you remember things, I was speaking to you guys off air about... I know it's not that much, but I was speaking to you about, remember Sviatchenko's goal in the semi-final? You know, things that Hampden and Clint Hill just sunk to his knees, and, there was the merest of touches, and that goal was disallowed So, you can pick out any kind of, this whole narrative that it's a disgraceful decision. It was right in front of the ref, and he blew straight away. He blew before the ball entered the net. He was pointing. So, yeah, if it goes against you, you're probably aggrieved. But there is a couple of stills where you see actually holding the jersey and then the two hands on the back, and that's what the referee has seen. My thoughts on things like soft and all that. It's a foul. You do it anywhere else in the park, it's a foul. Bottom line. And Thomas Burn's also saying Morelos did the same at Hampden and get away with it. So yeah, you sometimes get them, you sometimes don't. He didn't get it on this occasion. So
there's a few comments that kind of split. I'd say it's probably on the more so that it was a foul. There's a few like Chilpel saying Johnston and Morelos were both at it, all that kind of stuff. Sean Malloy came in, I think, and said if that was at the other end, Celtic would be raging, all that kind of stuff. The way I see it, at the first angle, I thought that's hell of a soft. Two of them have arms on each other. The reverse angle, though, both of Morelos' hands or arms were outstretched. So for me, while it is still softish, I think he's ultimately made the referee's mind up for him, and he probably didn't even need to, because from a Celtic point of view, obviously it was good, but I don't actually think he had to nudge him at that point. I think he'd already kind of won that tussle. They were both at it, and Johnston was already going to get caught under it, I think. And did he make a meal of it when he went down? Probably, but every footballer does. I think Morelos, both arms outstretched, it's a push. What more do you want? What I don't like is the fact that this was watching it back again. The commentators, I think, both Andy Walker and Alan McCoist let themselves down, I think, because I think it's, again, a fundamental misunderstanding of VAR. You had Alan McCoist saying it was a laughing stock, saying that it's a disgrace, all that kind of stuff. It had nothing to do with VAR.
Yes.
The referee saw it. The referee was right there. The referee gave it as a foul and disallowed the goal. The only way VAR gets involved in that is if it's an incorrect decision and it's a clear and obvious error, which neither of it is, because it is a foul. It might be soft, but it was a foul, so it was technically correct. The VAR's got nothing to do with it. VAR had absolutely no role in that whatsoever. Now, whether you think it was soft or not, right, fair enough, but ultimately it's got nothing to do with VAR, and I think they let themselves down with that again, because it was almost looking for the easy out, I think. After the ref's given that foul, if you think it's absolutely in no way a foul, the VAR, then you overturn it, it's a clear and obvious error. But as I've said, even though it's on the softer side, he's got both hands on him and pushes him outwards. Once the ref gives it for that, there's no chance VAR's overturning it.
You can't be talking about easy outs when it comes to VAR, Sean. You need to write to your employers and get you to apologise for saying that last statement. Well, I raised that from the minutes of the meeting, Aidan. The right honourable gentleman said 2 seconds ago, just to raise that. Yeah, Gary McDowell's a push at end of Chilpel. He agrees with Sean. Yeah, I felt that it was a push. He had two hands on him, and the referee saw it as clear as day, and they gave it and blew the whistle, as you should. Now, you feel hard done by, yeah, of course you will, but then again, it happens, doesn't it?
Yep. And ultimately, as I say, it's whether you think it was soft or not. Once the referee gives it, and the fact that it is not an incorrect call, he just saw it was a soft foul maybe, but it was still a foul. Once the ref gives it as a foul, VAR can't get involved and say, "Oh, see that foul that you gave as a foul? Don't give it as a foul." Do you know what I mean? It was. I'm going to get annoyed at it, but it was shocking commentary. I'll say that. But but on a positive note, the next thing to happen that we're going to go to, and we're blow by blow here is a positive. It's the Celtic opening goal, and we've kind of touched on it already with Matt O'Reilly's involvement in it. I would spare a wee thought for Greg Taylor. I thought he had a pivotal role in it. I'm just going to say Matt O'Reilly is making sure that my shout for top creator is still ticking along nicely there. For a wee while, Aaron Moy was catching up. But I've put in the link to Stuart Ross's post, which was all about Matt O'Reilly, and might be shading my view of it a wee bit when I'm saying I kind of disagree with you more, Aidan, because I'd obviously put Stuart's piece in the system, and he was breaking down just how influential Matt O'Reilly was. So that's in the comments if you want to read. That's in the description as well. But Aidan, anything else you would say about the opening goal? Kyogo's composure, maybe something like that.
Yeah, Kyogo's composure I thought was phenomenal for it. When at the game, it was kind of like right in front of me, so when he got it, and then he sort of kind of turned back on himself and then turned around, I wondered if he'd maybe just spun himself out of position slightly. But when you see it back, you know exactly what he's doing, and it's absolutely lethal from that angle. Obviously, I think McGregor did get a slight touch on it, but there was no way he was going to be able to stop that. It was a phenomenal finish, and yeah, that was, well, at that point, I know we obviously got another goal in the game, but that was Kyogo's 4th goal in 3 games against Rangers, that first strike. So he's been on fire against them recently after I think I did a newsletter after his goal at Ibrox saying how that was kind of a sort of important monkey maybe on his way to get off his back, that he got that sort of first goal against Rangers. You don't want to drag it on too long, particularly in a season when he has been scoring a lot of goals, but he's well and truly put that to bed now because he's been absolutely lethal against them recently.
Tony, that goal was, you'll have noticed he done that wee thing where he kind of goes as if he's going to run to the front, but then hangs back and he's in a world of space. But even after that, to have the composure to turn and swivel and then hit it was great, wasn't it?
But it takes a special player to find them. Having done that, Matt O'Reilly's cutback, you can't underestimate how good that was. I mean, it opened up the space for Kyogo to take a touch and be able to swivel and have the time. Kyogo's movement makes it, but Matt O'Reilly finds him perfectly. But I'm beginning to wonder where Greg Taylor actually plays in the football park now. He's playing like a 10, and he just pops up everywhere. And whenever he pops up in a move, there's always danger. Something happens because he loves that ball inside the fullback, doesn't he? But even those like small, 6 to 8 yard passes to midfielders, knowing that there's something creative going to happen at the end of it. So, I mean, Taylor's always been your man. Matt O'Reilly's always been my man. But that was a brilliant football goal. And it seems so simple in its execution, doesn't it? But it's really, really difficult because they played it within a confined space. But all 3 players demonstrated their talent and what they've been doing on a regular basis this season. And I was glad for Matt O'Reilly because it's something that his game needed to assist in an important one again. But that triumvirate, Taylor to O'Reilly to Kyogo, that's in the back of the net, it's a brilliant football goal. If you watch it back, and obviously you'll think it's a great football goal because it's a great goal because it scored against Rangers, but the actual football that's involved in it and some of the technique and the skill and a confined space is wonderful to watch.
Mahash coming in saying Ange made a tactical change for this game, had Taylor inverting more and Alistair Johnston sitting wide. I did notice on the pass network, Greg Taylor's was about where it usually is, his usual kind of positioning, but Alistair Johnston was 1 deeper and 2, as Mahash said, wider. It was almost he was alongside Carter Vickers and Starfield, which I think is probably a natural thing to happen when, as I said, Rangers were pushing a wee bit more than usual and Celtic were finding it a wee bit more difficult to find those passes through. But it's an interesting observation. Aero says Kyogo's ability to anticipate is next level, even for the second goal. He just has the instinct. Now, Tony, your big game verdict, the link to which I've put in the comments and it's in the description, you're like, I'm going to go with Kyogo because this is just ridiculous. He's become officially a Derby talisman. He was already a talisman, but the last few months, that's you saying officially he's on the Derby Roll of Honour.
Yeah. I mean, and I think he was annoyed himself that he didn't get a hat-trick with the one he pulled down. And it was deflected away. But, you banned me from using the word talismanic about him because I've been saying it for a while. But I think you just...
We allowed it on Saturday.
Yeah, that's 48 in 2 seasons, isn't it? I mean, another 2 goals, that's a half century, and if he stays around, I was making the point that he's going to hit the 100 mark, doesn't he, if he stays around for Celtic in jig time and join that elite band of 30 players. He's a phenomenon. He's a goal-scoring phenomenon. And I was making the point, and I spoke to John Hartson recently, and he was talking about his movement being Larsson-esque and stuff like that, but I'm also saying I don't think there's been a striker since Larsson that's made you smile like Kyogo, that lifts the team and the fans and everybody like Larsson, because he's just got that uncanny knack and ability, 1, to stick the ball in the net, and 2, to be in the right place at the right time. But just does it naturally. I mean, that one he swept through McGregor's legs on Saturday after Davis's mistake. It's just natural. It's just one touch, bang, in the net, and then the pass from O'Reilly, he swivels one touch and he's thinking, shot away, it's in the net. I mean, McGregor, as Aidan said, got two hands to it, but can't keep it out because it's because of the ferocity of the shot and his accuracy. But you're just enjoying what you're seeing from him, and you still want to see more of O, don't you? But you think to yourself, he can't displace this guy at the minute because everything he touches is turning to gold. And I was even ahead of myself, Sean. I had him in 30 goals at one point. You had to correct me on that Saturday, didn't you? Twice.
As I said, you're looking a week into the future. I think.
Yeah, exactly. But he's going to hit 30 goals this season, no problem, Aidan, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. The sort of scoring rate he's at right now, and it's going to be. It would probably need to take an injury for him to not hit those numbers. With there being seven league games, isn't there? Also a semi-final, potentially a cup final. So 9 matches overall. I think it's quite likely that he's going to hit that and maybe even beat those numbers, Tony. I think if he was to get 32, I think Moussa Dembele got in the 16-17 season. So that's in terms of like recent numbers with a striker that scored most goals in a season. That'd be the sort of number you'd probably be looking for him to try and beat now. And I don't think there's any reason why he can't. But yeah, Kyogo was phenomenal. And I agree with you, Tony. I would like to see a bit more of O as well. I thought he did all right when they came on in the match, but you can't be taking Kyogo out the starting 11 for any of these games unless he does, pick up a knock or there'll be a potential suspension or something on the line. You just need to keep playing him because he's a phenomenal talent.
And Sean, you said there that's 5. It's more than Morelos has scored. That's 5 in 2 seasons.
Morelos more than Morelos has managed to be fair.
Morelos has got 3 in 6 seasons, hasn't he? In Celtic Rangers games. So there you go. There's a start for you.
Kaiser saying he thinks Kyogo's goal average is every 80 minutes. It's not quite as good as that. It's I think every 105 minutes, but that's across all competitions. With 48 goals, it's still a very, very good average when you factor it all in. And he doesn't really complete 90 minutes all that often either. Remember that. So he's been superb. CJ7, how many goals is Kyogo in now? He's the best since Larson, 48, and not even 2 full seasons because he's been injured at various points. Best since Larson, he says. Tony. Next thing I suppose we need to touch on is the Rangers equaliser. Now, Tony, you text me at the time saying you had a bad feeling when O'Reilly gave away that foul. I thought he got the ball. Can I mention this? I thought on the replay, even if you think it was a foul, why is it a yellow card? Right, weird decision making from the officials. I thought it was really poor from the referee most of the game. Come to that in a wee while once we've covered the kind of big moments. But as for the free kick, it was a great hit in off the bar. When it goes in off the bar, I think it's hard to stop from Joe Hart's perspective. Aidan, when you were at the game, did you think Joe Hart could have done better? Because I've seen that suggested. I think when it goes in off the bar like that, there's not much you can do. But
no, at the game, I didn't think Joe Hart could have done much better. To be honest, it's like one of those ones. It hits the underside of the bar like that. It's very hard for the goalkeeper to save it. I've seen a couple of people, or should say there was a few people sitting around about me sort of moaning about Joe Hart's position and just in the lead up to it, thinking maybe left a wee bit too much space. But I disagree. I just think it was a good free kick. Unfortunately, when I watched the highlights back when I got home on Saturday night, I thought the same. Sometimes you just need to accept it was a quality strike.
Tony?
Oh no, he's beating all ends up with that. You're not saving that. I mean, that's, you can say what you like about Tavernier, but he hits a mean penalty and he hits a brilliant free kick. You have to say congratulations to him for scoring 100 goals for Rangers. Scoring 100 goals for either of the Glasgow clubs, it is a great achievement. I'm glad he got 100 goals and he still ended up in the losing sides, but you have to be magnanimous in that and say well done to Tavernier for scoring 100 goals. Yep, a lot of them are penalties, but you've still got to take them and score them. Celtic have their problems with penalties in recent years, so they have a reliable penalty taker and they have a reliable guy 25 yards, 30 yards out free kick wise. So I'll hat tip to Tavernier for that, because I thought that was, I mean, I did text you and say, oh no, you know what I mean, I had a bad feeling. On the free kick award itself, I agree with you, never a booking, and he played the ball and then it was a follow through, wasn't it, that he kind of connected with. And I would argue the toss about that free kick being given, but you can't argue with its execution. It was a belter, and mean, you can't blame Joe Hart for that. It goes in off the underside bar, even if he was positioned, but he's still no saving it. So, but as I say, a nice personal milestone for Tavernier scoring 100 goals, but I'm glad he ended up on the losing side. If that's, but that's the nature of rivalry, isn't it? But yeah, it's, I don't know how many penalties he scored for Rangers, but it doesn't matter. He's very good at them.
I think it's 50. Peter McGlone, speaking of goals, Peter McGlone came in saying Griffiths got 42. I think he got 40 in 2015-16. But Aidan, you were just meaning the last person to get 30. Aye?
Yeah, I was. Obviously, it was sort of recent numbers. Yeah, Griffiths' 40 would far and away be the. I think is that the most a Celtic figures had in the season since Larson? He's 50. Yeah, so
yeah, 53. Yeah,
53. Sorry, if we're talking about in like the last.
Although to be fair, Larson get like 44 and 41 after he gets 53 as well.
Right,
so.
Fair enough. So yeah, it would be like several Larson seasons then we'd be referring to.
It's just anything. It's just after Henrik. Basically, it's just that's just a law to itself when he was at Celtic. But
yeah, I was just referring to like the sort of last player to get a number in the 30s. But yeah, of course, Griffiths' season would be up
there. Tory, right after half time, I've got it in my notes. I thought Rangers genuinely did actually come out and were on top right after half time. I thought pressure was starting to mount. Joe Hart made a decent save from Morelos, but then Celtic scored a second.
Yeah,
and I mean, when you think about the second one, what pops into mind?
Well, I was going to rewind first about Raskin leading with the head on.
All right, okay. Okay.
Now, I thought that was worthy of punishment, and I think that's why McGregor got involved in that shoving game. You know, not the first Rangers person to lead with the head in recent weeks. You know, and fair play to McGregor, who didn't make a meal of it, but he's motioned his head towards him, and he has connected. That it wasn't any great connection, but he's brushed his head like that. And McGregor was, I think everybody saw the meme of McGregor calling him a stupid something and telling him to beat it, which is why he reacted in the way he did. And also fair play to McGregor, because he was going up to the referee a lot and saying, right, get this sorted, behave yourself. And I was happy about that, but it wasn't in an aggressive way. You know, the way maybe a Scott Brown might have been a bit more snarling about it, but McGregor was always cool and calm and collected and forceful when he was talking to the ref. He was like, if you're going to talk to me, sort this out. Because, you know, and I thought Raskin was lucky in the extreme to not get any punishment for that. And it's something that could have been looked at, probably should have been looked at, because you can't motion your head towards another player. Didn't Alan Thompson do that to Rickson or someone at Ibrox? And it was a brush of the head and he fell. And
do you know what happened? The one, and it's not even a Celtic game, but the one that comes to my mind all the time is the Lafferty and Mulgrew one up.
Yeah. But, well, that's another one.
There was none of that. There was none of the Lafferty rolling about kind of stuff. McGregor, he just went, "No, hold on, what you doing?"
Because McGregor that's no McGregor's style. But what he did do was flag it up to the referee and say, "Right here, this is what's going on. Are you watching this?" And yeah, they both get booked for pushing each other. Yeah, which again, to go back to yours, Sean, seemed like an easy way out, didn't it? Not actually deal with the incident that it stemmed from. Which was the kind of motion towards McGregor with the head. So he was lucky. I thought Raskin just wanted to put that out there as well. So
before we move on to the Celtic second, because you've opened the door there, I'll just go in with the booking stuff. Right, I was thinking there was a comment earlier on saying Kevin Clancy at his point nugget. Clancy was 2 card happy, and you know I started noticing that and started marking it down as well when I was doing it, and it was part of an overriding kind of how the ref was doing. Is basically what I'm doing. But it wasn't just the cards. Although I do think the cards has got something to be explained, because I don't really think. For instance, there ended up 19 Celtic fouls, right, and they get 4 yellow cards, but they had the 4 yellow cards from their first 9 fouls, which I know you need to take every foul in isolation. But for instance, I don't think the Matt O'Reilly one was a yellow card. There was several where I thought, that's a bit quick to be brandishing a card there in a derby and all that. And I know maybe you think, oh well, should have mattered if it's a derby or not, but it does ultimately. You set a tone with your cards, and I would agree with Plunge McNugget that it was 2 card happy, even though when you look back, you're thinking, well, 4's not that many. but statistically speaking, Celtic don't get 4 bookings in a game all that often.
No.
I think I'm right in saying since Ange Postecoglou came in, they've had 4 against Rangers in that game on Saturday, 4 against Rangers in February, 4 against Rangers in April last year, and then 4 against Midtjylland last July 2021. That's the only times that they've had 4 yellow cards. And I'm just saying it to point it out because it was 4 yellow cards from the first 9 fouls on Saturday, which I just felt was not a referee at the top of his game. And then you marry that with some of the other odd decisions that he was making in terms of just wee daft things, like stopping the play for handball when Jota and it hit his chest and it was quite clearly a chest. Given 2 goal kicks when there was 2 corners. Both of them hit off Ryan Jack and went out. Both of them were given as a goal kick. Just wee daft things. I just thought Kevin Clancy had an absolute shocker of a game.
I agree with that, Aidan. I thought he had a shocker as well. But if you're going to be selective about various incidents, then you've got to, as you say, talk about them all. And I just thought the Raskin one for me could have been a lot more costly for Rangers had they chosen to.
See, to be honest, the first of the should have been a corner, but it was a goal kick he gave. That was just before the opening goal, and I remember thinking at the time, if, for instance, Rangers, I know they weren't offering then going forward, but I kept thinking at the time, if that wrong decision leads to a tide of kind of momentum, you can roll it all the way back and say, well, that was just an innocuous wrong decision. It turned out it never, because Celtic scored that like in the next phase of play after they had their goal kick. But I just think it was a really poor display. And even that decision, he overruled himself. He gave a corner. He saw it, gave a corner.
Yeah, he gave a corner. Yeah.
No, that was a goal kick. And instead of Kevin Clancy having the kind of minerals to go, well, no, it was a corner. He went, oh no, it must have been a goal kick then. And then he did the same later on, except it was his own decision.
There was a lot of that going on, Aidan, wasn't there?
I just think it was poor.
Yeah, I don't think the referee had a great game. That's probably for different reasons. Also, that's probably one thing that both sets of fans will agree on will be that Clancy didn't have that great a game. Just like you were mentioning there, the innocuous things like giving goal kicks over corners. A couple of times it looked like there was. These are ones I haven't seen back in the highlights, so I could be speaking out of turn. But there's a couple of times at the games there was a few throw-ins that looked like incorrect decisions and things like that. But yeah, and then the yellow card, like you obviously touched on the one for the Tavernier, which led to the Tavernier free kick. Even if we both debated whether or not it was a foul, but even if you take that stance, it's a very, very harsher, weird yellow card. Some of the decisions overall were quite poor, I thought, which when it's in such a big and important game like that is not ideal, because you want the ref to have a strong performance. You don't want the game to be, not that it did come down to that, but you don't want the whole talking points to be about, oh, Clancy's got to do this, he's got to do better. So hopefully whoever's refereeing the semi-final puts in a bit of a better, stronger performance.
Tony, I do find it quite funny though that the one big decision that I think he got spot on, and we've already said it might have been soft, but it's still right, is the one that Rangers are want to write about to the SFA. So good luck with that one. I think even Chris Boyd says what they're going to do right back. It's already finished. So
as Charlie Nicholas would say, that's ironical.
Right, we finally get to the second goal, Tony.
Yes,
he says for the second goal, does Jota get an assist? Yes, he gets an assist. And do you know what? I actually marked it down in the notes as well, and I think I says to you after the game, Tony, I really, really credit Jota with that goal, because he doesn't assume it's going to go out for a corner, and he also doesn't just let Ben Davies just rectify his poor clearance. He simply makes sure he gets himself involved. He doesn't even do anything. He just makes sure he is there. And if anything else happens, well done. And it works out. It hits him, not in the hand, I may point out. It hits him and drops to Kyogo. And it was a good finish, an underrated finish, I think, from Kyogo.
That's a brilliant finish, but Jota also doesn't act like a guilty man that the ball struck his hand.
I don't think it did hit his hand, though.
No, it didn't hit his hand, but that's what I mean. But he didn't act as if it come off his hand. He just, and the play goes on and Kyogo sweeps it through McGregor's legs and into the net. Always a wonderful sight. The ball going under Alan McGregor's legs and into the rigging, as they say. But no, Kyogo's not messing about. Jota did very well. Take advantage of those mistakes when they come along. That's the kind of thing that happens to Celtic in the Champions League, doesn't it? When a better team just exposes your frailties and deficiencies and punishes you. So it's good to see that Celtic have that in them to punish their rivals when those kind of things happen. You have to be clinical in those moments. And both Jota was switched on, and Kyogo even more so. So, yeah, big up to him. And again, you can't underestimate the finish. Swept it low, just made sure he scored, basically. And all the momentum was with Celtic after that, Aidan.
Yeah, it was really. After that sort of Kyogo goal went in, I was saying to my dad, and he was saying to me, we thought we were going to go on and get a few more goals. I know obviously there was Celtic did score again after that, but it did feel like a big sort of game changer that was going to lead to potentially maybe one of the other drubbings that we've seen in the sort of last couple of seasons. I know it maybe didn't plan out exactly like that, but that was the sort of feeling around me in the stadium. I felt at that point just with the momentum, because to get the goal at that time was absolutely vital. And yeah, Kyogo's finish was phenomenal, putting it under McGregor like that. Obviously, it kind of bounced off Jota, bounces kind of down, and then for him to just turn and hit it was excellent, and just shows how much quality he possesses. I know there's been a lot made, we discussed it earlier, how good his first finish was, but his second one I think was just as equally good, to be honest.
Speaking of the bounce off of Jota, Robert Gibson comes in saying, excellent ball control by Jota as always. Indeed. Kaiser's comment that I put up there saying Jota was relentless, that leads us nicely on to the third goal, because again, for me, I know it was a mistake, and I know it was a kind of short back pass from John Souttar, but again, for me, it's just been more switched on than the players round about you. Jota, in this instance, yes, John Souttar plays a questionable back pass, given he was playing it to a 41-year-old who has never been renowned as an athlete, but Jota is so quick to compute what's about to happen and taking the chance that it might happen. I think it's almost doing him a disservice to just focus on the Rangers' mistake like a lot of people have been, because his speed of thought, I mean, I says to you, I messaged you during it saying it makes Alan McGregor look like he's running through treacle, but to be honest, his speed of thought just made Alan McGregor look every inch the 41-year-old.
Yeah, but also you look at the finish, it was very Larsson-like at Ibrox when he scored his 50th, wasn't it? I think somebody
Did you see Larsson mentioned it on Instagram, I think?
Did he?
Yeah, Jota had mentioned it originally, and then Larsson had shared it on his own story.
It's the quickness of the feet and it's the quickness of the brain in that moment. Not only am I getting to this ball, switch it from right to left to make the finish. And it's not an easy finish, but he made it look so simple, didn't he? Mm-hmm. But quick touch with the right, onto the left, from that angle, at speed. I mean, it's a brilliant finish. And it turns out to be the match-winning goal. And as you say, the quickness of thought just to make sure you're getting to it before McGregor. How many would have got to it before McGregor and maybe anticipated contact and tried to get a penalty? Jota was too quick. He thought, I can score here. Not only is he thinking, I can get to the ball, he's thinking, I can score. And he scores the goal that turns out to be the match winner by, as I say, the quickness of speed and the thought and the brain and the feet in tandem. Bump, balls in the net. Game over. I can't talk highly enough about that finish. I really can't. Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Gary McDowell says it was a great finish. Derek Crawford with a great wee point says if you watch the goal back, Kyogo's not even looking at the pass back. He's sprinting towards the full-back so that McGregor's not got an easy option to pass out. If he did happen to get to the ball, obviously that was a great what-if. He was nowhere near it in the end. But I think there's one other thing that you mentioned that we never got to go into fully yet because it hadn't happened yet, but Alejandro Bernabé's phantom assist for nobody. The thing is, we were speaking on the phone after it, Tony, and there is no excuse for it, but we're both saying, and this is where I will agree with the commentators, both ex-strikers, Andy Walker, Alan McCoist, they're seeing it through a striker's lens of, well, you're one-on-one with the keeper, why would you not shoot? As I've said on here before, usually when it comes to Aaron Moy or Greg Taylor, there are players who are simply pass-first players that they will look to pass before shooting. But there is no option to pass there at all. So realistically, he's just had a total brain fart. I don't know who he thinks is making it up that quickly because O was the one that flicked it onto him to begin with. So,
Aidan, this is a man that's rattled one in from 25 yards or 20 odd yards the week before, and I mean rattled it. I mean, surely your confidence must be as high as a kite, and you just go have a rasper at it. And I'll go all Celtic Derby reference on you. You hit a hot shot, Hamish at that. Who cares if you miss? You miss. If you score, you're busting the net. Just rattle it. Hot shot Hamish was a comic character. Aidan, known for his hardness of his shots, which used to bulge the net and break the net and the goalposts. But I mean, surely Barnaby's just got to put the laces through that and rattle it.
Yeah, I mean, just to start off what the commenter saying there, the flick on from O I thought was pretty good. That was a good contribution from him there. And yeah, Bernabé, when you see it back, it's at the game. I couldn't believe it was happening. I seen it back. It was even worse. I think just have a shot at that stage. Like you say, Tony, this ability that he showed the week before at Ross County would lead us to think that he might have had a chance of scoring there, or at least forcing a good save from McGregor. I don't know if he thought, was near him, Haksabanovic. I don't know who he thought. I don't know what he was seeing sort of corner of his eye, but obviously there was no one there. Yeah, it was disappointing. It's maybe one you can maybe laugh at a wee bit now, but I think if the game had ended 3 each, people would not have been happy.
No, I agree with that.
They're be at all, but yeah, maybe it is like Sean's saying, it's maybe just falling to the wrong guy or somebody who is a pass first player. But after his goal up at Ross County, I was hoping for a wee bit better from him.
Patrick McLaughlin says they think it's all over in his head when Bernabeu went through. Yep. We've got a few ones, Tony, just mentioning the Bernabeu thing, but the mentioning of O leads me to put this one up. What's your thoughts on that? It's Fearless Celt says, should O have had a penalty for the foul by Davis in the box? First of all, do you think it was a foul? And secondly, does that mean it was a penalty then? Yep.
He does bump him a wee bit, doesn't he? But I'm not convinced that he kind of does the old swan dive, doesn't he? When he gets bumped, I mean, he has nudged off it. I mean, you can't deny that. But I don't, my thoughts on that kind of sort of thing. It either is or it isn't, and I think in that instance it wasn't. I could be. I didn't think there was sufficient kind of, contact per se to make him go down the way he did. So that's just my thoughts. You can't get them all. You know what I mean?
Peter McGlone saying, I'm not so sure he was fouled, to be honest. Aidan, one in the ground. I presume you thought it was a penalty, but after that, have you seen it back, and do you think it's one or not really?
Yeah, in the ground I was going crazy, as you can imagine, shouting it was a definite penalty, as was my dad beside me. But when I seen it back, there is a bit of contact, but I think, as Tony said, there's probably not enough for a player of sort of stature, etc., to be going down there. We've seen, how good condition he's in, how good he's been at sort of holding players off the ball. I think it would have been quite soft, to be honest, if that had been given.
Tony, I'm going to throw this up as well. We're going to mention a couple of individuals, but Alan Woods, I think that's a good point. That's 2 games in a row that Celtic could have increased the scoreline, let's put it that way, because I think if you've beat them both games, you have seen them off, but I get where Alan's coming from, specifically with breakaways. He hopes they're more clinical at Hampden. And he's obviously talking about the League Cup final. You had the Haksabanovic.
Yep.
Couple of instances there.
O'Reilly as well.
Yep. And then on Saturday, you had, for instance, the Bernabeu one and stuff. So he's right, and it would have added some more gloss to 2 scorelines, but ultimately they won both, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody in the ground doesn't know what Bernabeu's thinking is there, and if he shoots, I think he scores, especially when he showed you the week before that he can really rattle a ball from that distance, but he's going through it kind of, I was going to say he's going through it speed, but when I saw it again this morning, he wasn't charging through, he was just kind of, and I'm thinking, right, steady yourself and pick a spot, and nobody knows, as you said, he just froze in the moment and did nothing with it. But yeah, and Haksabanovic had a similar one, didn't he, at Hampden?
Yep.
O'Reilly had a similar one at Hampden with breakaways, and you have to say, if Celtic were as clinical with those chances, then they would have, the scoreline would be a lot more than 2-1 and 3-2, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. So you like to think that one day that'll all click, whether it's at Hampden for the semi-final or not. But the positive thing is that they're still capable of doing this and creating these chances. And then you say to yourself, well, maybe one day it will come into place, because you can argue that at Ibrox and in the League Cup final and in that game there, the real Celtic please stand up? They've stood up in parts, haven't they? But not the whole game. And I think that's what a lot of people are saying. It's always the next game with Rangers and their players saying you'll see a different Rangers. But what if you actually see a different Celtic and you see the real Celtic, the one that Ange was crying out for to dominate for the whole 90 minutes, the one that played the 3-0 game and the 4-0 game? So what if that one turns up at Hampden and they're as clinical? You can't ask Kyogo to be any more clinical, but what if his teammates around them are more clinical with their, then, you could conceivably win that game comfortably if it all falls into place. But again, I mean, that will take care of itself when when it turns up. But I'm quite confident in Celtic's ability to score goals against Rangers and create chances. It's defending set pieces and stuff like that I worry about. But I've no qualms about Celtic being able to hit them on the counter if they need to, or be clinical when chances come along. But I guess that's your only nitpick, isn't it? That in a game of such magnitude, you would ask them to be more clinical and not, and not rue any missed chances. They didn't rue missed chances in the League Cup final, didn't rue missed chances on Saturday. You have to say at some point they need to, if firing on all cylinders and they all go in, then you could be comfortable.
Now I've got a couple of things I suppose we could mention before we go, which obviously one of them is the second Rangers goal. Now I've got a question here from Antonios saying, should Joe Hart have done better against Tavernier's header? Aidan, have you seen it back? Have you just seen it live? Seen it back? What do you think? Joe Hart, other things defensively, what do you make of it?
Well, I think firstly, I don't think Tavernier should ever had as much space in the box to do that. It was like just a clip in, and I think it was a decent header from. Maybe Hart could have done a wee bit better, but for me, there should have been somebody there marking Tavernier a bit closely from that sort of position, in my opinion.
We'll go to Tony then. We'll go to Tony after that, yep. Aye, sorry, Aidan, on you go.
No, I'm just going to say that it was pretty close to Hart, I thought, there, when he's got the header like that. Obviously, any time a goal sort of goes in and it kind of looks maybe like it's went through the keeper, you're always going to think he could have done a wee bit better, but I think maybe criticism of Hart's a bit harsher. It was more the actual defensive setup I was a bit annoyed at.
Tony, Patrick saying he was annoyed with Hart for the second goal, but Robert Gibson saying the ball went back across him at speed. He doesn't think he can do much about it. But I know from our conversation after the game that it was more to do with the defenders for you.
Lack of challenge from Alistair Johnson. He gets sucked into where Cameron Carter-Vickers was, forgetting that there was a man coming in behind him. Tavernier's done what you do. You headed it down the way, back to whence it came, and he's headed it down straight at Hart. Yeah, agree with Kaiser with that one. Good header downwards, did everything right. Of course he did. But Johnson, who was very good the whole game, that's the one slack part that happened and caused a nervy 10 minutes. All he has to do is just be aware of the picture behind him and then get in some sort of challenge and put him off, because I don't think Tavernier's a renowned goal scorer of headers. No. But any kind of challenge there might have put him off. And Tavernier did what you would expected of him, a free header it down the way and as close to the goalkeeper as possible, back to where it came from, and he got his reward for it. Could Joe Hart have done better? Possibly, but I would have prepared to have seen Johnston tucking in and not ball watching and going in where Cameron Carter-Vickers was covering whoever it was that was there. I think it might have been Cholak by then, was it? I don't know. Whoever it was, but he got sucked in for an inexplicable reason, and for me that was the only time he switched off in the game.
The thing I would say, and not really in Johnston's defence, because ultimately it still was in his area, but it would be that it was the second phase of a corner kick, so the ball came away back on the opposite side. Tavernier's come in from having taken the corner kick, and yes, it should be Johnston that's kind of looking at that area, but the two centre backs haven't got themselves sorted out. It was Morelos, by the way, that was that was the closest. But Carter-Vickers is got a man, and then there's Tavernier's loitering at the back post, but Morelos is still hovering about in there as well. Starfelt's the one not picking up anybody, but that's because they've not spoke. Basically, they've not spoke to each other and just shifted a long one, which would let Alistair Johnston cover that space and Tavernier. He's got sucked in because he saw there's a shot in front of him. He's not checked behind him, but I think it's a mix of all three of them.
Possibly.
But ultimately, I agree with you.
I
think apart from that, Alistair Johnston had a really, really good game. Particularly in the first half. I think the second half, maybe not quite as good as the first half, but in the first half, I thought Ryan Kent must hate playing against him, because since they let him drift in that debut, he's got nothing at him whatsoever.
Yeah. And he also put a wonderful challenge in Tillman, who didn't want to know after that, did he?
I was about to use the word disappointed in Tillman, but I obviously wasn't disappointed that he played poorly. But I think he is a really good player from what I see of him. But this is continually now against Celtic. He doesn't turn up. And he did spend more of his time trying to buy fouls than actually trying to get on the ball and create, which he is capable of doing. So, I think Tillman faded where similar players for Celtic stood up.
Yeah, and Cantwell's contribution was to be bounced off Greg Taylor, wasn't it? I think you've seen that.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, so yeah.
Never underestimate a boy for Inverclyde, Tony. That's what
never do. Certainly not yourself. That right, Aidan?
Of course.
Last one, we've kind of spoke about individuals. We'll probably continue with the Derby stuff tomorrow anyway, to be honest with you boys. But the last kind of flashpoint that ended up not a flashpoint because he kind of realised what he was doing was Barisic and Haksabanovic when they went out tumbling over the byline, and Barisic grabbed him by the neck, but quickly realised what he was doing and turned it into a half a jokey kind of hug thing and never get punished for it. So I think he was very, very close.
I was on the cusp of getting that. Should have been looked at, Sean, because and fair play to Haksabanovic as well for not making a big deal of it.
Yeah.
And trying to get his man sent off, and I think that was injury time, wasn't it?
It was late on, yeah.
It doesn't matter when it is. You can't do that. No. You can't do that. And
you can almost see it in his eyes, though, Barisic, when he realised what he was doing.
Oh, yeah, it's like, what we've done. Let's all, so, again, lucky. So you're going to be selective about decisions, then, select them all.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, well, that's the worst decision ever, Aidan, with the goal, and not talk about Barisic and Raskin and these kind of things that happen. So that's I thought he was lucky there too, but still, it didn't affect the outcome of the game, did it?
No, it didn't. It didn't. It just seemed a bit of a bizarre thing for Barisic to do, and he obviously wasn't thinking. A few times during the game, he wasn't thinking what he was doing, to be honest. But definitely for that one, when you see it back, it's clear that he realises he's made a mistake, and fair play, Haksabanovic didn't react to it. If he'd maybe kicked up more at first, it could have led to maybe some action there. But yeah, he was quite chilled out because I don't think he wanted the referee to think that he had any sort of involvement or was being aggressive. So he handled that quite well, I thought.
Well, I'm glad Haksabanovic didn't react angrily, because he could have ended up portrayed as a guilty party. So Haksabanovic dealt with it very, very well, which is in tune with keeping with a lot of the players' discipline, Sean. I thought Celtic players' discipline was pretty good.
There's an argument to be made that maybe they could have made more of it if you're playing that kind of game. I'm quite happy with them not doing it.
Correct.
But there is an argument there that in the modern game, you're expected almost to be I don't mind that they didn't. I quite like that they didn't. That's the attitude they've got. They're more like, we're getting on with the game and all that. But I think they acquitted themselves well. I think they handled themselves well. And that was, as I said, despite my reservations about Kevin Clancy's 4 cards and 9 fouls.
Yes.
So I think that could easily have led to negative reactions from the Celtic players, and it didn't. And I think that's to their credit, because they weren't playing all that well, and they knew they weren't playing all that well. Alistair Johnston said after the game plan, they kind of strayed from it a wee bit. So when you add all these things together, it would have been easy. We're speaking about taking easy ways out and stuff. It is easy for a player to let themselves get a wee bit emotional about it, let themselves get carried away with something that they otherwise wouldn't, because they're not playing that well on that day. So I think it's to their credit that they kept ahead. They got their 3 goals, despite the fact that I'm saying they didn't play all that well. They still scored 3 goals again, so they're on for the goal scoring thing as well. All things went for Celtic, really, didn't it?
They did indeed. Now that's over an hour, gentlemen. Flew in, hasn't it? It's flown in. Peter Duffy. There is no gap between the teams, well, apart from the 1 trophy and 12 points. That is, I guess that says it all, doesn't it? You can probably end it on that. But guys, hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for all your comments coming in. Hope you've enjoyed myself, Sean and Aidan dissecting Saturday's events. Celtic are 12 points clear at the top of the Scottish Premiership, and hopefully they will wrap up the title in due course. We await Rangers again in the Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden at the end of the month. That's going to be a cracker, but we'll talk about that nearer the time. But guys, thanks very much. And if you haven't already, then why not subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism covering the club you love It'll cost you £2 for 2 months, and all you have to do is click the button www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Thank you for your comments coming in there, guys. Glad you enjoyed the show. We enjoy talking to you on a daily basis. We get used to these happy Mondays, don't we? Fantastic. So this is Derek Crawford there, yes. And we also say thank you to SENECA. As you well know, the Celtic Way morning briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. All that left for me to say is, Sean, thank you for your contribution. First class as always. Brilliant, Aidan. Glad you enjoyed that. Result dependent. Every weekend's the same, isn't it? But enjoy your happy Easter Monday. We'll go back to work, sadly, but hey, them's the breaks. But guys, have a wonderful day. We'll do it all again tomorrow. We'll probably talk about it all again, won't we, guys?
Cheers, Tory. Cheers, Trips.